on the bench is one of the new Madbull shells for another Madbull project. It's going to be going onto the Mad St Dragons chassis for the Mad 4x4. So this time we're going to try and use this figure. Not using a Pez head this time, but I brought this Batman figure. Got it for £3. I didn't think that was bad, but it's not a great figure. He's got his cape and all that, which I'm not too fussed about, being truthful. But let's get it out. This is where it's going to be a chop down and only probably use the top part of the body, because the legs, there is zero articulation. This thing is clunky. You know, I know he's armoured Batman, but my God. The top is brilliant, but it looks like, you look at this, his legs are like completely off scale. You know what I mean? Too bulky for my liking. So the articulation we got to work with is arm goes up each side and the head turns a little bit, so that's not a problem. But he's a good looking figure. So throw the packaging, we don't need that. Yeah. So as he's armoured, he's going to have some sort of joystick to grab onto, and we've got to angle him a bit. So I'm thinking roof off again. So it's going to be a straight roof off and go from there, and see how he goes in, and sort of build the cockpit over as much as possible, so he's like covered in with the sort of controls, and I think they'll look quite good. That's what I'm aiming for. But let's get this mounted first onto the chassis and do some cutting. There we go, the body's chopped, now fits. Now I can consider adding plastic and all that. Well, sorry, no. Now the body's fitted, we can now consider what to do with the figure. See how much we can cut off. You know, we've got to allow for his arms up a bit so they control onto something. Like, they have to be joystick for control, but I think possibly maybe lose the roof, or if maybe not, I might try cutting it out first. Try and cut a section so we leave most of the framework, just as a thought. We'll see. Now, working with chopped down Batman, I've got a place for him to sit. I've just got to sand him a bit. He's a bit off on the cut, so I've got to sand him into shape, and he'll go just a little lower. But it's thinking where to go from here, because I have done some other parts. I've got a couple of machine guns, but it's how to mount them. You know, it's so they sort of sit in the right orientation. Does that sound right? Because you want to have them sitting downhill, so you'd want them raised. So I've got two of them to play with, mirrored. So that's what I'm looking at first to add, and then we'll sort of think about somehow some sort of missile system. But it seems what I can find, or if not, I'm going to have to make something up. Well, with the guns I was undecided, and in the end I went for, on the back here, putting one either side. It's not the perfect position, but it was the easiest way I could sort of get them sort of aiming forwards without major changes. I did think here, on here, it was just major aggro. I could have done on here, but it would have been a single one forwards, and I didn't want that. So now I'm going to look at some other weapons to go on, because before I armour the body up with just extra plastic, I want to get everything in place so I can sort of fit the bits on as I go. But this is what sort of you're up against, you know, you're sort of trying to make things work. And then you notice you're slightly out of line on one, that's annoying. But the reason I wanted to do them like this, these are screwed on. So if I do crash it and break one of these completely off, I can just print another one and slap it back on. You know, just be drilling a couple of holes and putting the screws back in. So I'm going to have a look now and see what I can find, some sort of missile launcher I want from the back or something, or two of them to there. Maybe something on the front here, but maybe not, you know. You know, it doesn't always come straight away what you want to put into a body. Now, working on the Armoured Madbull Batman build, I found these rocket launchers. I've printed two of them off. I modified the back, so they've got like tubes out the back. I stuck some printed tubes on the back to make them look a bit different. Now, if you put them on, I think they need a slight angle, so I'm going to try and make a 1 mil at the back, so it raises it just a fraction, and probably 4 to 5 at the front, and make some little ramps to go underneath and put them on, and then I can drill through and screw in through the whole lot. So I've got to design those. The only other thing I was thinking of is getting to the pin. Well, what I'm going to do is, I think I can on this, is just turn them out. Maybe not. That is quite stuck. I must use thread lock. It's only blue, it shouldn't be that tough. The answer is I can't turn it. Wow. Oh no, here it goes. Loosened it. That was a surprise, I'll be truthful. I didn't quite expect that. Still not quite right. There we go. I've changed it back to what it was, haven't I? There we go, it's adjusted. So now that will allow for these going either side. So you've got to think of these things as like you've got to change around bits. But like everything I try to do is reversible. I think that's important, you know, it's so you can always put the original bodies back on. That's why I don't like going over permanent. I'd rather make things a little harder to start with for better later. But let's get these ramp design and try and get these fitted. And then we've got to think of something what to mount on there. So we got to a good point on this to stop. I printed this cannon I found. Quite good. But the new printer printed the top bit wobbly. It does wobble on fine things. A bit shocked at that. But that's going to be mounted there. I've got to drill it and screw it, but I've just got to wait for this to dry all the plastic I've put in for the mount. So that's pretty good. So we've got a front cannon and I can still get to the body clip, which is important. I've worked on the interior. There's a lot more in it now. It started to be bulked out and tidied up. I decided to raise the sides and that. But like I said, this is as far as I'm going in this video, and we've gone some way to getting the armoured sort of Batmobile with the armoured Batman. But next video will be probably starting the armour and how we're going to do that and the detail parts.